Hello ladies and gentlemen, I just got done reviewing Batman the Animated Series Season 2, and with that said, around the same time, the very next thing that happened in the DCAU was released on Blu-ray. That being the feature film, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. For those of you familiar with the DC animated movies, you may be wondering why this one is a feature, and all the other ones to follow, even up to the present day, are all direct-to-DVD and Blu-ray. Well, actually, it was supposed to be a direct-to-DVD, or VHS rather, but it was changed to be in theaters for whatever reason, and so this movie was released in December of 1993, and it bombed. The film was made on a budget of $6 million and made about $5.5 million. So they didn't even break even, but hey, $5.5 million isn't bad, right? Well, absolutely not. You see, Mask of the Phantasm came out to raving reviews, and the previous Batman film, 1992's Batman Returns, was made for an $80 million budget and made $266 million at the box office. And that movie had mixed reception, with the first Batman film having made over $400 million at the box office for a budget of about $35 million. They did make up for it in VHS sales, and that's probably what inspired them to go to straight to DVD for future films that I'll talk about later, such as the next BTAS movie, Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, Batman Mystery of the Batwoman, which is the film based on the new Batman adventures, and Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, which is obviously Batman Beyond. And while I'm at it, I'm just gonna say now, no, Superman Brainiac Attacks doesn't count, since while it looks and sounds like STAS, it just isn't. At any rate, I've seen this movie like once or twice on TV, and I think my most recent viewing was like 2012, maybe. I don't really remember. However, the movie kept me engaged from beginning to end. That much I do remember. So this is actually my first time owning this film, and I'm glad I waited to buy it, and so now I have the 25th anniversary Blu-ray, which I wholeheartedly recommend, although I wish it did have some behind the scenes material, but what it does have is the theatrical cut of the movie, the trailer, and the TV version. This review will be focused on the theatrical cut, but to jump the gun a bit, the TV version is literally the exact same thing, only in 4:3, and therefore has more of the image on the top and bottom. I was expecting it to have a lot of the blood removed, but it did not, but I'll get back to that later. In this video, I'm going to compare the film to the show it's based on, and also I'm going to briefly compare it to the first two Batman films, and how Mask of the Phantasm as a whole stacks up on its own. So let's get started. When I first saw this movie, the title sequence was a bit concerning. I mean, back then, and even to this day, animation often uses CGI to animate a lot of the background elements, since that saves money and time, since you don't have to individually draw and color those minor details. However, the only CGI in this movie I noticed was the intro as the camera pans through Gotham City, and even though it's aged about as gracefully as CGI mixed with traditional animation from the 90s can, it still kind of looks a little uncanny. But the thing that saves the intro is the fact that Shirley Walker is of course composing the film, and the score is brilliant, and it feels like way more of a budget was put into it in comparison to the series. Throughout the opening credits, fans of the show will be confident to see the people behind this movie. In particular, the fact that the writing team features the guys who are behind some of the best episodes of BTAS, such as Paul Dini and Alan Burnett. The former having written such memorable episodes like The Man Who Killed Batman, Almost Got Him, The Joker's Favor, Heart of Ice, and the list goes on and on and on. Needless to say, he didn't work on any crap episodes like Moon of the Wolf or Prophecy of Doom. Alan Burnett didn't write much of the content we've covered for BTAS, but some notable episodes he did write would include Two-Face as well as Mudslide. But just to fill out his resume, he later worked on episodes like World's Finest from STAS as well as Judgment Day from TNBA and Rebirth from Batman Beyond. So needless to say, the story and screenplay is in very competent hands. The opening of this film is something I need to talk about, since in the series, one of the most disappointing things about the first two seasons is how mediocre the action scenes are. They're okay. There are some exceptions, but when you think of Batman, you want to see goons getting their asses handed to them on a silver platter. It should be fast-paced and exciting. And no, I'm not just some filthy millennial who needs to see explosions at every waking second. Good stories and acting come before all of that. However, I'm just saying that while BTAS has those in spades, it's missing the other things that make Batman, well, Batman. That's why the opening of this film just shocked me.
Get him!
It it isn't even especially great, it's just so much more than what I was ever expecting. I guess this means from the very first frame, they're putting the budget to good use. The Blu-ray digitally remastered this movie, and I think it looks phenomenal, with the grainy look of the show being perfectly intact and better than ever. Of course, this was always a beautiful film when it came to the shots, the lighting, and the atmosphere, but I'm happy to see it looking so good on the big screen. No ACOM mistakes this time. Anywho, that brings us to the actual story. The crime boss, Chucky Saul, gets away, but is attacked by a mysterious new figure known as the Phantasm, and this is our new villain. I love this scene to death since it just feels like a horror movie with the ominous presence of the Phantasm and its seemingly invincible nature. How does it disappear like that? Well, who cares? It just adds to the effect. This scene also introduces us to the fact that this movie is pretty bloody, and it's not apologizing at all, since the story they were trying to tell demands that sort of thing. A great example of that being how Chucky Saul is murdered by the Phantasm, and of course Batman is to blame, which sounds like On Leather Wings to me. But then you gotta ask, why do I keep bringing up that episode? I know it's the first episode, but seriously, me bringing attention to it all the time makes it sound a lot better than it actually is. Anyway, the Phantasm's out for blood as it's killing several crime bosses all across town, with the second of these killings being absolutely gruesome in implication.
Farewell, Mr. Bronski.
Similar to Robin's Reckoning, we don't see a body or anything, but just the thought alone is enough to send shivers up your spine. Speaking of Robin's Reckoning, this movie has a large portion of the runtime spent in flashback, and just like that episode, it's mixed with the story of the present beautifully, and reveals to us things about these characters we know and love from the show that we never would have guessed previously. We all know that Bruce sees plenty of women throughout his life, but none of them were ever anything too serious for him. But when that's called into question, we get our very first flashback that introduces us to Andrea Beaumont, whom Bruce instantly shares something with since they both lost a parent, or in Bruce's case, both parents. But the part I love the most out of this first flashback is the one right after, with Bruce's first night as a vigilante, and...
Yeah, you heard him, boys. You heard Mr. Kung Fu.
Yeah, I'm shaking.
Say your prayers, sucker.
The crooks don't take him seriously at all, which is when he realizes...
As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible.
Seriously, I think a strong parallel between this version of Bruce and the Dark Knight trilogy version can be made, but that is neither here nor there. I said in the Volume 2 review that we see all the experiences that led to this Bruce to being where he is, and this is no exception because on his first night of crime fighting, he wasn't really that good. Like, we're subtly told about the things Bruce would need for his costume, by the way. I already established the fear part, hence the bat suit. But he could really use a grappling hook in several instances throughout the truck chase, as well as a cape. He doesn't tell Alfred to add those things to the shopping list or anything. We can clearly see that he's missing those things, since we have already seen how he operates while watching this movie, and especially through the series itself. Back to the present though, Andrea is back in Gotham, which has got Bruce incredibly skeptical, seeing as she left Gotham many years ago. And man, this shot with Batman on the rooftop, breathtaking. The scene establishes the fact that Andrea's father is not in town, but takes us back to the past yet again with the strengthening relationship between Andrea and Bruce as they visit the City of the Future theme park, depicting a perfect metropolis, which is of course a farce given how this is Gotham City. Up to this point, the film's been really good, but the point where it becomes even more than that is the moment where Bruce meets Andrea's father, since we see a younger version of the mob boss from earlier, Mr. Valestra, who was shocked at the news of Saul and Browski's murders. This instantly gets your mind racing as to who the Phantasm is. We saw Andrea had some fighting skills in one of her earlier scenes with Bruce, but her standing back while Bruce tries to stop a mugging kind of makes you think less of her on that front. Since Valestra was looking really shady in Carl Beaumont's office, you wonder if he's the Phantasm, since maybe he would want revenge for whatever happened? Who knows? The flashbacks don't play out in one big sequence. It's cut up with scenes from the present, which makes the mystery all the stronger. What I do know is that the scene where Bruce begins to doubt whether or not he should be with Andrea or continue his mission of trying to defend the streets as Batman is great. He can't do both, and that's fascinating. You might say that this is a flashback, so obviously we know which choice he makes, but this is Batman we're talking about, one of the most dedicated characters of all time, and here he is ready to give life another chance and be with a woman he loves? That's interesting. You really want to know what would stop him and make him be Batman instead, since he actually goes to his parents' grave and begs to be allowed to quit. The lighting is amazing here, and the way we see the lightning strike over their graves as he asks to be able to quit is just beautiful.
Please, I need it to be different now. I know I made a promise, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy.
There isn't much time in the present before we get to the next flashback, but I will say is that Alfred in this movie is really well done, seeing as he provides just as much wit as ever.
Such rot, sir. Why, you're the very model of sanity. Oh, by the way, I've pressed your tights and put away your exploding gas balls.
Thank you, Alfred.
But also provides the voice of reason during the serious moments both in the present and the current day. I'd say every character is well done, especially Bruce. Kevin Conroy has considerable range, seeing as I said in Volume 1, he had the perfect distinction between Bruce and Batman, but here he also has to tackle a younger Bruce Wayne and a fresh off the press Batman on his first night dealing with criminals, and he's excellent at it. Batman finally finds out the connection between these killings, and that brings him to Carl Beaumont yet again. And that brings us right back to the past, with Bruce's proposal to Andrea, which is a great scene and would be a fitting end to some love story. However, again, we all know this is going sour somehow, and that makes it both happy and depressing as an audience member viewing this from the outside. The next scene's significant for a few reasons, the first being how this shows us the very first time Bruce saw Jack Napier, who's outside Beaumont's house. Oh, who's that? Well, remember back to the episode Dreams in Darkness.
Jack Napier, Harvey Dent, Pamela Isley, or as you call them, the Joker, Two-Face, and Poison Ivy. We keep them all under constant watch.
Jack Napier is the name or an alias that the Joker used to go by, and that is cool. We see Batman and Joker's first meeting was as Bruce Wayne and Jack Napier, and it's not some lame destined to meet story like Batman 89. This is a complete coincidence. What happens inside is left ambiguous, but it's not entirely difficult to figure out, seeing as obviously the mob only wants money, and so Mr. Beaumont's clearly in trouble for that very reason, thus bringing the flashbacks to an end for the time being. This is the most powerful scene in the movie for me.
Alfred, what's wrong?
This just arrived, sir.
Left with Dad. Too young. Need time. Forget about me.
The thing is, we already know that Bruce was completely ready to abandon the mission of Batman to pursue a happy life with Andrea, and in Justice League Unlimited, Bruce said the following to Wonder Woman.
I haven't been a kid since I was 8 years old.
So Bruce pretty much died alongside his parents, is what that line means. But this was his second chance at life. Bruce Wayne's last chance for life at that. And it's not just that Andrea laughed, so, well, I guess I'll be Batman now. But he knew that there was mob trouble at her house. It was obvious. So not only were his parents taken as a result of the crime-ridden streets of Gotham, but now the mob has probably severed his connection to the woman he loves, possibly forever? Well, he doesn't know the full extent yet, but that's to be revealed. But regardless, now the passion is actually as strong as ever to take vengeance and strike at the heart of Gotham's underworld, killing Bruce Wayne once and for all, and in his place, the Batman. This last paragraph alone is the reason this is a better movie than Batman 89 and Batman Returns combined. I mean, I haven't watched Returns in full for like 4 years now, but I have watched Batman 89 a few times. Those films are really entertaining from start to finish, but the thing is, this is a movie about something. This movie has a character arc for Batman. This story is his story first and foremost. It's not a villain of the week formula. That's not to say the first two Batman films don't have a story and don't have character arcs, because they do, but the novelty of Batman on screen feels like it was more important than the story to me. There are emotions you get while watching this film. Emotions that I never got in any of the first 4 live-action Batman films. In a world before Batman Begins, this was the only film where we got inside of his head, seeing the things we never thought we'd see him go through, etc. It was a story about the character of Batman. I could end this review literally right now, but we still have half the movie to get through. And by the way, just as a note to keep in mind, this scene here is going to be brought up again several times in the DCAU Retrospective. The reason being that I have a hard time buying the fact that Bruce would ever consider getting into an intimate romantic relationship ever again after this. Hell, I'd say things not working out with Andrea thanks to the mob is just as crucial to this version of Batman's origin as much as his parents getting shot. Yes, I did just say that. So the next scene adds my favorite character to the story.
Gasp! Can it be? Old Sally the Weezer Valestra!
Oh, you thought the Joker appearing as Napier was just an Easter egg? Well, of course not. He's now part of the story as Valestra requests him to kill off Batman, or whoever's responsible for the mass killings of the old gang. With this being a Joker scene, there are a few things I'd like to say. First, I love how Joker's hideout was the perfect Metropolis theme park from the flashbacks. The reason being because now this place is run down and disgusting and is generally in disrepair. That creates a strong juxtaposition since we already know what this place is supposed to stand for, the bright future of Gotham City. But now with its current condition, it's a perfect visual representation of how ugly Gotham truly is. On a brighter side, there is this scene.
Once he gets me, how long till he gets you? You know what I'm talking about. Your hands are just as dirty. Dirtier.
Don't touch me, old man. I don't know where you've been.
The last point is that I'm not sure when this movie takes place in the canon, which is perfectly fine. As I'll discuss when going over Mystery of the Batwoman, Justice League, and Return of the Joker, canon isn't necessarily everything. I think canon matters, but subtext is far more important. We know that this takes place at some point in the BTAS era, when I have no idea. I mean, Harley Quinn's not in this movie at all. But does that mean this is before they met? Could be, but she could just as easily be in prison since it's a thing that Joker only ever breaks her out if he needs her for something. Robin's also not in this movie, nor is he ever mentioned. I mean, is he away at college? I guess. Seeing as Robin's Reckoning showed us the prior Batsuit, thus meaning it cannot be before that. This is what I care about. They don't bog the plot of this movie down by having to spell out when exactly it takes place in the DCAU timeline. What matters is that it's in the BTAS era before Superman ever existed, which is all I need to know to enjoy the storyline. It's fun to debate when it happens, and I'm not trying to devalue the movie's connection to the show at all, since the bond is very strong. I'm just trying to show the fact that you don't need to worry about canon every waking second of this movie. Being familiar with the characters and their dynamics in the series is all that needs to be understood to watch this movie and get the most out of it. Once again, the tension of who the Phantasm is ramps up as Batman sees Andrea tell Mr. Reeves that she and her father are closer than ever, but then tells him that she has no idea where he is. So now he'd probably be thinking he was the Phantasm, since that would be the most likely suspect given the shady scene from earlier. But now the later flashback of the Beaumonts escaping the city makes that connection even stronger. That, and in the credits, Mr. Beaumont and the Phantasm have the same voice, but it's pretty hard to tell given the effects done on the Phantasm's voice. Speaking of which, the Phantasm attempts to kill Mr. Valestra, but clearly the Joker has done the deed for him. After a brief fight with Batman, the Phantasm gets away, beginning a scene that reminds me of Batman Begins, only the circumstances are clearly different. But nevertheless, Batman's being chased by the police all across Gotham's rooftops, and this chase is no joke. They are firing bullets at him from every angle, and even detonating explosives to ensure that he can't escape. Although, that last one was on accident, but still, that accident does hinder Batman quite a bit. Bruce shows some ingenuity by attaching some wood in his cape to a helicopter to get their attention off of him, and while we know this isn't Batman, still, they were shooting to kill. So now he has to run on foot without his mask? Just the thought of that alone is tense. But he's saved by Andrea, which allows them to chat, and that's when we learn that the reason behind Andrea leaving Gotham was because her father, like I suspected, owed the mob money and he has 24 hours to get it or else he's dead. So they left Gotham as soon as possible. And with that said, the next few minutes is mainly exposition, so I'll rush through. Batman discovers the Joker is involved in this, and that's when the Joker visits Mr. Reeves, and now he's suspecting him of being the Phantasm because of how much he's blaming Batman and because he had been involved with Mr. Beaumont's fate, and now he would want the gang out of the picture. So the Joker decides to get him out of the way instead.
Makes you want to laugh, doesn't it, Harley?
He's not dead, well, yet, but he's alive long enough for Batman to find out that Reeves worked for Beaumont, and when he couldn't get money out of Beaumont for his political campaign, Reeves sold his location out to the mob.
You? But he paid you. Dad?
That flashback being the first time we are basically told the Joker did something really gruesome. Thing is, since BTAS is a cartoon, the Joker is technically never able to get away with doing anything despite the fact that we know he's capable of it. However, now we're seeing his shady history as a hired hit for the mob, and that is a scary thought that would really be called into question in The Dark Knight. I find the Joker in BTAS to be incredibly entertaining and scary at the same time, but then you realize you're being entertained by a man who murders people in the most gruesome ways possible. And Joker's not an idiot, seeing as he is a genius, given the fact that he runs gangs and made Joker toxin, which must have taken some real chemistry skills. My point being that Mr. J is no fool, with the clown-like appearance and bad jokes being something he uses to take people off guard. Just that description makes him sound like a character to be feared. But of course, this isn't a review of the Joker's character, so let us get into the climax, where the Phantasm is revealed to be Andrea, which now puts the whole story into perspective since she was the one out for revenge for her father, and to do so she's killing the old gang that did him in. The last step would be to kill the Joker, but this doesn't go so well since he's not a terrible fighter himself. But Batman obviously steps in at the last second.
They had to pay!
But Andy, what will vengeance solve?
If anyone knows the answer to that, Bruce, it's you.
Leave, Andy. Now.
He chases the Joker through the theme park, showing us their most violent battle to date. With Batman being severely cut up by the toy planes the Joker sends after him, and Batman having kicked a tooth right out of the Joker's mouth. In the last few moments, the Joker sets the place to blow, and when Andrea is going in to end him for good, he laughs while staring in the face of death. In the end, Bruce has no choice but to return to the streets as confident as ever since Alfred cheered him up, and Andrea left behind a locket for Bruce to remember her by, showing that she's still alive, thus ending Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. So that was the movie, and while the review might seem short, the movie itself is not really long either. It's only about 70 minutes, but what they did in those 70 minutes had me engaged throughout every single one. Like I said already, this was easily the best Batman movie ever made before Batman Begins. It gave us a story that couldn't have been done justice on an episode of the show. A story that told us new things about the characters we know and love from said series. Gave us a heart-wrenching character arc for Batman, which is something none of the live-action film serials, and most importantly, the first 4 Batman films never gave us. The animation was stunning from shot to shot, with not a single mistake, which is something even the best episodes of the show were plagued with, like Heart of Ice and Almost Got Him. They knew they were making a movie here, and they brought their A-game. Which carries over to the voice cast. We have our regulars from the show like Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, but the audio quality is cleaner and the acting is just better. I don't know how else to describe it. I guess Andrea Romano told the actors to be as absolutely professional as possible, seeing as this is again a feature film. Other new additions to the cast, such as Dana Delaney as Andrea, were great as well, although it did throw me off hearing her voice since I'm now so used to STAS where she voiced Lois Lane and had the exact same voice. Not a flaw with the movie, but still. Like I said, this movie came out to raving reviews, and while it did bomb, it got the delayed appreciation it deserved with high VHS sales, and to this day, many fans still consider it to be one of the best Batman movies of all time. I highly recommend that you buy this movie on Blu-ray if you even have a remote interest in the DCAU or just BTAS alone. Since we've gotten the complete series of Justice League on Blu-ray, but for BTAS, STAS, and Batman Beyond, we only have the DVDs. What I want to see is Blu-rays of those shows I just listed and give them the same facelift that was given to this movie. Back on subject though, I think this film is easily better than the 56 episodes of the first 2 seasons combined. Those seasons were as a whole great, but this film really had it all, and it wouldn't have been that good without those seasons. So that is not to discredit them at all, seeing as a feature film should be better and more highly produced than the show. And as just a movie, it just holds up really well. You don't even have to be a die-hard fan of Batman to enjoy the storyline. It's a compelling mystery through and through. However, the real question is, will this new and very high standard carry over to the last season of the original run of BTAS? It doesn't have to be film quality, obviously, but I'm just saying the standards for writing itself have been found, so I see no reason why BTAS Volume 3 should suffer. With that said, obviously the next DCAU video is going to be Batman the Animated Series Volume 3, but I'll hold off on that until next year. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.